How should you feel about Tet McMillan in your dynasty leagues at the moment? Why should you be downgrading a certain San Francisco wide receiver? And what's the proper reaction to Russell Wilson signing with the New York Giants? Plus, the three-time FFPC League champion George Ristad sits in with in the co-host chair tonight, as we rap about Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, Noah Gray, and so much more. We've got a great show for you. As I said, George Ristad is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts right now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics tuning in tonight. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I am your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. You can follow me on the X at Eric Balkman. Follow the FFPC on X at FFPC. Of course, you know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown and the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Coming up on the show tonight, we have fill-in guest co-host tonight, George Ristad, who is a winner of multiple FFPC leagues, who's going to come in and talk Dynasty with us tonight. We're going to be discussing Cedric Tillman's 2025 role in Cleveland. We're going to talk about the actionable advice that we can offer on how you handle J.J. McCarthy in your Dynasty leagues. And we will also be talking about what we know and what we can tell you about Bucky Irving, exactly whatever it is, 26 days before the start of the 2025 NFL Draft in glorious Green Bay, Wisconsin. I know there's people out there who probably have never been to Green Bay, who have probably never been to Northeast Wisconsin, yet they seem like experts that the people here suck, that the city here sucks, and that they want to have nothing to do with Green Bay. And listen, people who come here may feel that way after the draft. Just reserve judgment till after the draft. Come here first before you make these resounding resolutions on what Northeast Wisconsin is like. If you experience it and you feel that way, hey, that it is what it is. But let's save the wide-sweeping generalizations for later on. If you want to connect, and I'm off my soapbox now, I'm sorry. If you want to connect with us on X, please do so at hsffhour, at Eric Balkman. And of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. I'm in a couple of slow drafts there, anxiously awaiting for them to fill. I know that I won't be waiting long. Very excited to get my KFFSC on. Not that I haven't already. I already got a couple of drafts under my belt there, but excited to get more going on with the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship this year. If you have any questions for us, send them in now at X, at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. We'll get to them later on in our fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend, Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend, Rob. I want to give a shout out to Bill Hollywood, who was commenting on the podcast last night. It was a lot of fun on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. Shane Hallam from drafting out with me for 2 full hours. And normally we get into like veterans and stuff going on in free agency in the NFL and sort of our takeaways and what has happened in the NFL so far this year. We didn't do any of that last night. It was all rookies all the time. We spent the first segment all basically on running backs and quarterbacks. The second segment was all on wide receivers and tight ends. And the third segment was all about the Dynasty Superflex rookie draft rankings over at draftsharks.com. Shane is great. You can check that out on the Better Sports Network socials, bettersportsnetwork.com, if you want to watch that back. A lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I know you did too. James Hicks is hanging out tonight. Good evening, Balky. He's chiming in on YouTube right now, and I'll give a shout out from Oinker to say hi to you, James, as well. Bill is checking out the Michigan game tonight. Yeah, we just saw Michigan State advance to the Elite Eight. My Wisconsin Badgers, I'm not wearing my Badgers hat tonight. They did not make it to the Sweet 16, which was really unfortunate, but that's okay because we got fantasy football to discuss tonight. Speaking of fantasy football, if you want to be engaged in some action that's going on right now, look no further than myffpc.com, myffpc.com. We are less than 4 weeks away from the 2025 Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments closing out. As you know, both those tournaments, both the Classic and the Superflex tournaments, will end on Thursday, April 24th, the start of the 2025 NFL Draft. So you only have less than 4 weeks away to play in those tournaments. $40,000 grand prize in the Classic, $10,000 grand prize in the Superflex version, $125 and $35 entry fees, respectively. Drafts are available right now, 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, and 6-hour clocks going on right now at myffpc.com. If you want to pick up a Dynasty Fantasy Football League, we like to encourage that type of behavior with the FFPC. Check them out, myffpc.com. Those entry fees normally range from $77 all the way up to $5,000. Many of those entry fees have been lowered, some to $1, so you can basically pick up a free Dynasty team for 2025. And who doesn't like, if it's free, it's me, right? If it's free, it should be you. So check that out at myffpc.com. As a reminder, we've been doing the Dynasty game for 15 years, so a decade and a half, 1,800 plus leagues in those 15 years, and none of them have ever folded. Check it out, myffpc.com, myffpc.com is where to go. You can also play in the Big Gorilla tournament that is going on right now at myffpc.com. As a reminder, the Big Gorilla tournament is the replacement for the Fantasy Pros Championship. I should say the replacement, but it is the new version of the Fantasy Pros Championship, a $1 million grand prize in that as well. You can draft live, you can draft slow. $350 entry fee, 3 teams for $1,000. You're getting a $50 discount for every third team you get. Drafts are already running now over at myffpc.com. The Early Rampage and the 7 Bananas promos are live as well. What are those? Well, the Early Rampage is basically a tournament within a tournament. So if you join now, you are basically joining 2 tournaments for the price of 1. The Early Rampage tournament is going to feature the first 200 leagues to join the Big Gorilla this year, and you will be in a running for a $10,000 grand prize. 7 Bananas promo has been awesome so far. Every time you get the 7 pick more than once in a row, you're winning something with us, be it a best ball tournament entry, a main event entry, a high society entry, or a free jungle safari for 4. Those are all on the table. We've already awarded several best ball entries in our best ball tournament. We awarded a main event entry recently as well for a gentleman who got the 7 pick 3 times in a row. And I don't know if he's joined another league since then. So the next league he joins, if he hits that 7 pick, he's going to get a free $10,000 entry from us to our high society drafts that will be drafting live at Paris Resort and Casino live this September in Las Vegas. It's going to be a lot of fun. You want to register for that, get in the running. myffpc.com is myffpc.com is where to go. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, and get notified every time we go live on this channel, which will be actually, normally I'm always teasing that we just go live Thursday and Friday. We will have a show, a high stakes lowdown from RotoViz coming up at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. More on that coming up later on in the show. So we'll actually have 3 live shows for you next week as we get you amped up for the NFL draft. I always say, there's so much that can be gleaned as far as dynasty goes at this point. With the rookies coming in and understanding how that's going on, it's going to help you become a better best ball player as well. So whether you're playing redraft, best ball, managed leagues, Big Gorilla, Dynasty, we got you covered here at myffpc.com. Okay, let's get into tonight's news and notes as we take the fantasy flash around the league. Joe Person, who covers the Carolina Panthers for The Athletic, has reported that the Panthers are going to be holding a top 30 visit with wide receiver Tetaroa, and I think I'm pronouncing that name right, Tetaroa, a.k.a. Tet McMillan, out of Arizona, the Wildcat there. He is going to have a top 30 visit with the Carolina Panthers. Panthers wide receiver room is pretty desolate. You know, I know there's a lot of Jalen Coker fans out there. I am not one of them. I get why people like him. I'm not a huge fan, but we'll see what happens with Coker. I still want to believe in Leggett, although there's probably a less than a third of a chance after what I saw in week 1 where he pans out. I could be wrong on that. I hope I'm wrong on that because I have him in a few dynasty leagues. But Tet McMillan apparently is somebody that the Carolina Panthers will be looking at. Adam Thielen, who is the number 2 wide receiver there for Carolina right now, is going to be going into his 12th year, I think, as an NFL player. And obviously McMillan would be a huge boost to that Panthers room. You could go, if you're Carolina, with a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, with Coker, McMillan, and Thielen, or Leggett, McMillan, and Thielen, if you wanted to go that way as well. Carolina is holding the 8th pick in the draft, so they'd have to take McMillan there. I can't imagine he'd be around in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. I have, for anybody who watches the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network, you know I am not sold on McMillan. I'm not a huge believer in him as a pro. Now, I have a ton of dynasty leagues, so I'm sure I'll have some exposure to him, but he's not a guy I'm targeting. He's not a guy I'm interested in. And maybe I can have my mind changed on that. As of yet, despite a lot of people coming on and saying, you know, you need to reevaluate how you feel about Tet McMillan, I have not changed my mind on that. And maybe I never will. But there's another guy who I'm going to bring on right now who maybe could change my mind, or maybe he's with me on the anti-Tet McMillan train. He is a guy who won 3 FFPC leagues, dynasty leagues last year in 2024 alone. He is joining me tonight as my guest co-host with the most. Please welcome onto the show, Mr. Carlos Danger, a.k.a. George Ristad. George, welcome in tonight. So glad that you're hopping aboard with me. How are you this evening?
Doing fantastic. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I don't know when you get, because I know you're a big dynasty player, I don't know when you get involved with the rookie evaluation, but knowing what you know about Tet McMillan right now, I have not made this a secret. I love the size. I love the catch radius. The speed I'm okay with. Just the separation in college, I just have a problem with, and I wonder how that changes when he gets to the pros, if he is able to separate from NFL level corners. I feel like he could be a pretty good pro, but based on where I think his draft capital is going to be, and based on who's going to draft him, and based on what I have to invest to get him on my teams, I just don't feel like I'm going to have a whole lot of Tet McMillan this year. I don't know how you feel about him. I don't know if you've even begun scouting him yet, but knowing what you know about Tet McMillan, how do you feel about him at this moment in time here in late March?
Yeah, I've just started digging into him a little bit. For me, short term, the rookies are all about landing spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long term, the talent's going to win out. But you look at Rome last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of buried behind 2 veterans. So I'm in wait and see until we get more clarity on the landing spot.
I'm kind of with you. Like I mean, as far as like, if I'm drafting in best ball leagues right now, if I'm drafting in even the Big Gorilla, which is a managed league, I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm not bending over backwards to get this guy on my team because I just don't see it. And quite frankly, I could see him, George, going in the top 10. I could also see him falling out of the top 20. And is that a player I want to, reach for right now? Probably not. So I'm staying away. Now, speaking of wide receivers here, let's get into Brandon Ayuk. Adam Schefter on his own podcast this week said he thinks Ayuk, who is dealing with that ACL tear, could be ready to play by mid-season. This totally caught me off guard. Quote from Adam Schefter: "From what I understand, Dr. Neil Elatrash is pleased with his progress. He's coming along. I think he's ready to play by midseason. Now, this is a guy who tore his ACL in week 7 of last year. You tear your ACL in week 7, I would imagine that you would, based on recoveries from ACLs in recent years, I would expect that you would be playing real live games in September. The fact that we are hearing this late March, that he is ready to play by midseason by a national pundit, to me suggests he is not going to be ready to play by midseason. That is the ceiling for Brandon Ayuk right now, and I think he's going to be ready much later. Based on what the Niners invested into him, he's a 6-year guy, 4 years, $120 million extension is what he signed last year with the Niners. And apparently San Francisco has been trying to trade him, or at least have been involved in trade discussions. Man, I cannot stay far enough away from Brandon Ayuk. I have no use for him in best ball. And quite frankly, George, I'm thinking about selling him for like 70, 75 cents on the dollar in Dynasty Leagues right now, because there's a very real possibility after he comes back this year, he is not going to be his normal self, because we know ACL tears, the first year you come back, you're usually not your normal self. And then it's like another year I got to wait before he's back hitting at 100% of where he was the year before. I just foresee a lot of messiness with Ayuk right now. I want nothing to do with him in redraft leagues, and quite frankly, Dynasty Leagues. If somebody wants to make me an offer, I'm probably going to give him a sweet deal on Ayuk. How do you feel about him?
Well, I'm buying. I'm taking your low ball offers. Now, I agree with you 100% in best ball. I'm fading him. The Niners are my team, and he is the only wide receiver that they have that can beat man coverage, and he's the only reason that they were able to stay competitive in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And that's part of the reason they let Debo go and drafted Parasol, is they needed more man beaters, right? So, yeah, short term, the injury's concerning. Long term, I think it's a buying opportunity. And it really just depends on the makeup of your team. Are you in win now? Yeah, maybe you sell him. But if you're rebuilding and you can get him for a mid-second in FFPC, I think he's going to be a good buy for patient long-term owners.
I will say that if the mid-second is the going rate, I would be considering. I would consider shipping out a mid-second round for Ayuk. I'm not saying I would do it, but I would definitely consider it if somebody was offering that to me. How do you feel, since I know you're a Niners guy, how do you feel about Pearsall, not only in best ball leagues, but in Dynasty Leagues right now as well, knowing that Ayuk probably, best case scenario, is probably not coming back till the middle part of the 2025 year?
Well, one of the things that I love about FFPC is playing portfolio, right? So for me, I'm a value investor. I look at Dynasty much as I look at investing. And so in some leagues, right, I mean, people are paying a late first for Parasol. I'm selling at that late.
I would too at that point. Yes.
And so, and then, in some leagues, Juwan Jennings, right? I got Juwan Jennings, Jalen Warren, and Mark Andrews in a standard league to move back from the 105 to the 109, right? So there I'm buying. So it's really league dependent. I think Parasol's going to disappoint. If you think he's going to come in week 1 and be a wide receiver 2, I think you're going to be disappointed. The wide receiver 1 on the 49ers name is George Kittle. And I think Jennings and Parasol, I like them a lot more in best ball than I do in redraft. But I think this offense is going to run through George Kittle and CMC, and Jennings and Parasol will take turns having, nice games.
It's a little bit different for best ball leagues, obviously, than Dynasty. What do you make of George Kittle in the Never Too Early Best Ball tournament going at the tight end 3 at the 310 right now? By the way, I'm getting that ADP knowledge from fantasymojo.com at fantasymojo on the X. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros vs. Joes Challenge with the FFPC. Anytime I cite ADP on this program, it's because of him. George Kittle has moved up to tight end 3. He has moved up to the 310. This is basically almost a full round ahead of Sam Laporta, which we'll get into later on in the show. And it is about a round and a half, almost 2 rounds behind Trey McBride, who's the wide receiver too. I always get nervous with these players who are not spring chickens anymore. And Kittle, I think, what is he, George? Like 29, 30 years old coming in this season?
Yeah, he's 30.
30, okay. And he's dealt with injuries in the past, the significant injuries. You are all on board with him this year, regardless of Ayuk, regardless of Pearsall. You think Brock Purdy is going to be targeting Kittle early and often, much like he was in 2024.
Yes, although at the 310, that's way too rich for me. I mean, that's priced to perfection, and that's priced at his ceiling. In that situation, I would be fading that price and targeting Tucker Kraft, Brenton Strange, targeting PPR machines and high yak guys much later in the draft.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. I'm on board with that. In 2024, March 28th, 2025, Russell Wilson, George, is still relevant. We're talking about him. According to Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network, Russell Wilson expects to be the Giants' starting quarterback. This past Tuesday, Wilson signed a 1-year deal, $10.5 million guaranteed. Ian Rappaport says that the deal is absolutely chock full of incentives, so he could earn a lot more than that $10.5 million. In fact, could be up to another $10.5 million via incentives, via escalators in the contract. The Giants probably, I would say as a carrot that they dangled to him, said he's going to get first crack at the job. They obviously already signed Jameis Winston too, and they have Tommy Cutlets on the roster as well. You have Winston on a 2-year deal who signed a backup type deal. I wouldn't say Wilson's deal is a starting type deal, but it definitely could be that if he ends up hitting his numbers here. And there's also a non-zero chance that the Giants utilize the 3rd overall pick in the draft on Shadur Sanders. Or maybe they trade up to 2 to get Shadur Sanders. Or maybe they trade up to number 1 to get Cam Ward. I mean, all these things have a possibility of happening. And given that the Giants quarterback room has not really been great over the last couple of years, to have Wilson, Winston, and either Sanders or Ward would probably be very welcome by Giants fans, by Giants players, and by the front office there. How do we handle Russell Wilson in Dynasty Superflex leagues right now? Do we treat him as the starter? Does Winston have more appeal than maybe he did 2 weeks ago? And then we also have to bake in the factor of the Giants, despite signing these 2 veterans, George, they could draft a guy in the top 2 or 3 picks of the draft. This is kind of a mess right now. How are you treating it, again, in Dynasty Superflex leagues?
So I'm trading away Wilson. In fact, I traded Wilson today for Cousins and 2 5th-round picks.
Oh.
I'd much rather have Cousins. I mean, do we think Kirk Cousins' career is over? Right? I mean, is he not going to make another NFL start? No, of course not. He's not going to be on the bench all season for the Falcons. And so to me, who's a better quarterback? It's Cousins. Mm-hmm. The Giants are desperate, right? I mean, let's be honest. The GM, Dable, they're all losing their jobs if ownership doesn't see a market improvement. And at the end of the day, right, what is football? It's entertainment. Right. And what is Jameis? He's entertainment. It may not be pretty, but I would much rather, if I'm a Giants fan, see a game like that Denver-Cleveland last year on Monday Night Football, where it was 42-39 and Jerry Jeudy had 200 yards. Right. Let the fans enjoy the game, air it out. Who cares if they're picks? This is entertainment. So I would be shocked if Jameis doesn't make a handful of starts. I think they both make starts. I think they're probably, maybe they draft someone like Jackson Dart if they go with Hunter with the third pick. But it's going to be a shit show.
I think, I mean, like, I was kind of let down when the Giants signed Wilson. I was all excited for all this Jameis. I mean, think about Jameis Winston and Malik Neighbors.
Man.
I mean, Neighbors is catching double-digit balls more than half the games of the season. He's going to catch 15 touchdowns. Yeah, Winston's probably throwing 20 picks. Who cares? Yes. Neighbors was going to be absolutely electric. And think about that, too. And, like, let's say they never signed let's say they never signed Russell Wilson. Let's say they do what you're saying, where they don't take a quarterback with a top 3 pick. They wait on Jackson for Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe or somebody in the second or third round. And it's Winston to Neighbors all year. How far does that move Neighbors up in the ADP discussion for best ball leagues? Neighbors right now, I mean, granted, he's going fairly high. Malik Neighbors at the moment, wide receiver 4 at the 109. I could push him past Puka Nacua. I could push him past CeeDee Lamb. Justin Jefferson with J.J. McCarthy, you think you can make the case that Neighbors would be going higher than Jefferson at that point, and all of a sudden he's wide receiver 2 behind Jamar Chase. That won't happen for a season-long aspect, but to your point, George, could happen for a few games this season, and I am here for it. As the quarterback worm turns, Pittsburgh still does not have anybody except for Mason Rudolph there. But there is a certain 4-time MVP that is still a free agent that has not made a decision yet. No surprise, it's Aaron Rodgers. Josina Anderson, an NFL insider, has reported that Rodgers and Steelers OC Arthur Smith had a good vibe when Rodgers visited with the Steelers in Pittsburgh this past week. Apparently, the visit overall went really well. Smith and Rodgers watched film together, and they talked about what they saw. I don't know what film they're watching, but it seemed to be going good. Josina Anderson said, quote, "From Pittsburgh's viewpoint, I heard they walked away that day feeling really good about the vibe of the meeting, per a league source." Now, if Rodgers does sign with the Steelers, he is going to take over an offense that last year under Arthur Smith was very run heavy. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. 4.3% below its expected pass rate in 2024. It was the 4th lowest rate in the NFL. Now, Rodgers, who's going to be 41 years old this year. In fact, I think he turns 42 in December. Don't quote me on that, but I think that might be accurate. Could be joining a Pittsburgh Steelers team, George, that not only features George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, but one DK Metcalf, a player that the Steelers are paying $30 million a year for right now. What do you make of Aaron Rodgers in Dynasty Superflex leagues right now? What do you make of him? Like, should we just be treating him like he is going to be the Steelers quarterback? We've seen from multiple outlets. I think Mike Florio is one of them, so that would be a big surprise if Rodgers wasn't the quarterback for the Steelers week 1. How do you treat Aaron Rodgers right now in Dynasty leagues? And quite frankly, the second part of that question, what about Metcalf? What about Pickens, knowing that the odds-on favorite to be the quarterback for Steel City in 2025 is one Aaron Charles Rodgers?
I can't think of a worse quarterback the Steelers could bring in than Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
Mason Rudolph would be worse. He would be worse, George.
I would rather see Rudolph out there. I mean, he is more Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers is the opposite of Steel City.
He is.
And then you combine him with 2 of the most volatile wide receivers in the NFL. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers couldn't get along with Garrett Wilson, how is he going to get along with George Pickens and DK Metcalf? And I have a very reliable source in Seattle who said the reason DK wanted out is because he absolutely hates Geno's guts. And that's why I was actively buying JSN after his disappointing rookie year, not because I thought JSN was going to be a superstar, but I felt 90% sure that DK was going to be gone. And I didn't think Geno would be gone. I didn't see that coming, but I definitely was betting that DK was gone.
Well, they're not together. They're not together on any team. They're not in Las Vegas. They're not in Pittsburgh. They're not in Seattle.
Yes,
they are like different sides of the country now.
But Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he's coming back. He's somewhere, right? If it's not Cleveland, it's Pittsburgh. The guy can't stay out of the limelight. I mean, this is a sad situation. The Jets were an absolute debacle. I mean, trading, what did they trade for 6 games of Devontae Adams, a 3rd round pick?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he's a cancer. I mean, he's a cancer, plain and simple. This is not going to end well. Now, from a fantasy perspective, you know, I'm a little more optimistic, right? Because he's another year removed from the Achilles. You know, it's the same reason that I'm bullish on Kirk Cousins, based 100% on the price. I mean, right now you can get Cousins in Superflex for, you know, a 4th or 5th right before cut downs from, you know, teams who are desperate to sell them. But I think Aaron Rodgers could have a nice season with those two and Freiermuth. I'm guessing they probably draft a running back to complement Jaylen Warren. So I think he could be a good value. But if I'm a Steelers fan, do I want to see Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh? Absolutely not.
Interesting. That is very interesting. And we could see that. But you're right. I mean, like you think about what the Steelers have been, not only the course of the last 15, 20 years under Mike Tomlin, but what they've been as a franchise. To me, Rodgers is kind of like oil and water, right? I'm living in Northeast Wisconsin here, George, and I can tell you that the Packers fans here never embraced Rodgers the way that they embraced Brett Favre, who was much more a representative of the type of fan that lives here. Blue collar, hard drinking, hard partying, salt of the earth, meat and potatoes type people. That's not Aaron Rodgers. And I feel like, and I've always said this, that they're the Steelers fans and who make up the Steelers fan base, they are very similar to the type of Packers fans here. And I don't know how that's going to go over. I think you're right. I think it could be bad. Let's get into you, the player, the FFPC player, George. What are you doing for a living when you're not winning these dynasty leagues, when you're not competing and playing fantasy football with the FFPC?
Well, I'm a professional problem solver, so I'm a real I'm a real estate developer. So it's, you know, one project after another, putting together the pieces of a puzzle. I'm also a volunteer firefighter here in California.
You guys have been busy.
Well, I mean, that's why I signed up. I live in Sonoma County, and with these big fire events, we need bodies, right? We need resources. It's a lot of fun. And then I surf big waves. So as you can tell, I don't shy away from risk, but it's calculated risk, right? It's not reckless risk. So.
Sonoma County too. Are you a big wine guy then?
Well, yeah, I grew up in Sonoma, went to high school in Napa, and I grew up with all the wine families. So the Sebastianis, the Mondavis, you know, but
I got it. I have an uncle who my dad grew up in Milwaukee, and I know nobody cares about this, but I'm going to say it anyway. My uncle and him, they grew up in Milwaukee, and in the late 70s, early 80s, he moved out to the Bay Area. He lives in Sausalito.
Sure.
And has been there for, I don't know, like 30 or 40 years. I went out and visited him a couple of times, and every time I go out there, God, is it gorgeous out there. It makes me want to reevaluate why I'm living in the snow-filled Northeast Wisconsin area, but always a good time hanging out there. And you're obviously living the life out there as well. Now, I want to ask you about Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard is a player that I own on a few dynasty leagues. I wouldn't say I own him on a bunch. And I was really, really happy when they signed him to that extension last season. And I wouldn't say I was happy when Jonathan Brooks retore his ACL, because I never take pleasure in injuries. But I knew that solidified sort of my Hubbard shares. And then Carolina went out and signed Rico Dowdle off the Cowboys, a guy who looked more than capable of carrying the load for an NFL team. And now he will be perhaps the 1B to Chuba Hubbard's 1A. Maybe he's only going to be the number 2 to Chuba Hubbard's 1. But how motivated are you right now to sell Chuba Hubbard in your dynasty leagues, now knowing that he's going to have to share the backfield, at least in some part, to what degree we don't know, with Rico Dowdle?
I'm not selling Chuba at all. He's my highest owned running back. I think I have 25% of them in FFPC Dynasty, primarily because I don't want to pay for running backs, right? I build my teams around two of the elite wide receivers, right? So a Jefferson, a CD, a Neighbors, a Chase, and then I kind of punt running back. But I love Chuba. I mean, he was an elite prospect his sophomore year at Oklahoma State. He rushed for 2,000 yards, 21 TDs. He came back for his junior year, which was probably a mistake, and got injured. And then his draft stock fell. And so he was drafted in the 4th round, but likely would have been a 2nd round pick if he had come out after his sophomore year. You mentioned the contract, a 4-year, $33 million contract with, I think, 12 to 15 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
He is their starter. If anything, I'm buying Chuba if I have a nervous owner out there who's selling him for less than he's worth, and I am 100% selling Dowdle. I've been dumping Dowdle all offseason. He was one of my highest owned running backs last year because I bought him in the offseason for pennies on the dollar, 5th round picks. But Dowdle is.
What are you getting for Dowdle right now? Just like 3rd round rookie picks? Or?
Yeah. So here's some of the deals I've done. 3rd round, 2 4ths and a 26th third. I traded him for Rashid Shaheed. I mean, basically anything I can get. Okay. Ideally, multiple picks.
And it's all found money because, like you said, you paid nothing to get him, and now you're gaining essentially value on him.
Oh, I loved him last year.
Right.
I mean, I was aggressively acquiring Dowdle last year because I thought, talent would win out and he'd beat out Zeke. But the reality is he's a 27-year-old undrafted free agent who got $2.75 million guaranteed money, and can make up to $5 or $6 million. That is backup money. And he's only signed for this year. So I would, if you have a lot of Dowdle, I would use this as an opportunity to sell. His only value to me is as contingent, and I see him as in the Miles Sanders role.
Yeah, and the Miles Sanders role, not great. It's not a good place to be,
especially if you're Miles Sanders.
Oh yeah, he was the worst guy in the worst guy you could fill the Miles Sanders role with was Miles Sanders. This is kind of a weird question, and maybe this is too forward thinking. Travis Kelce has announced he's coming back for 2025. And this was after a season where I think more so than years past, Travis Kelce owners cursed Noah Gray for taking away a significant amount of catches, targets, and maybe touchdowns from Travis Kelce this year. Do you think that Noah Gray is the successor to Kelce in Kansas City? Or do you think that they're going to invest in somebody in whether it be free agency or the draft that Noah Gray, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at here when I ask you this, George, is now the time to buy a Noah Gray, or is it fool's gold that you are never going to get what you're thinking you're going to get with Noah Gray at the moment? Because not only do you not know what's going to happen, you got to wait at a minimum until 2026 to find out and to get an answer at all.
Yeah, so he's my highest owned tight end because I was counting on Kelce retiring.
Right.
So nobody was more disappointed that Travis Kelce was not riding off into the wind with Taylor Swift and signing podcast deals and
with Jason, doing more breakfast cereal commercials. It's unfortunate because now he's gonna be back on the gridiron.
But would it surprise me if Noah Gray outscored Travis Kelce this year and they kind of hold Kelce back for the playoffs? No, it wouldn't. Yeah. I thought Gray looked really good last year. Now, is he the heir apparent? They also drafted Wiley.
Jared Wiley, yes.
Yeah, who was a 4th round pick and was hurt and didn't do much. They gave Gray a 3-year, $18 million contract with, I think, $10 million guaranteed. But I don't know if he has anything guaranteed beyond this year. My gut says I want to hold as much Noah Gray as possible through week 1, but I'm definitely going to have to cut him in some leagues with the deadline coming up here. The other caveat, right, is this is a really deep tight end class. So would it surprise me if the Chiefs draft a tight end? No, it wouldn't, because they don't have a whole lot committed long-term to Noah Gray. So if you have the roster space, I think he's definitely worth a spot. But I see him more of a Cade Otton, low-end tight end 1. I don't see him ever moving up into the tight end 5 range. I don't think he has the upside of, say, a Kraft, who I think is George Kittle Jr.
You mentioned Kraft. Is there any other tight ends when you think about this, George, that are out there that we don't think as top 5 tight ends in Dynasty that maybe have it in them? Tucker Kraft, I think, is interesting. And quite frankly, the caveat I have with Kraft is like, there's so many Jordan Love spreads the ball around so much. And we saw how run heavy the Packers went this year. I don't know if that's going to happen again in 2026 or 2025. But I've seen it happen already. So I don't question Kraft as far as his talent. I just question whether he'll get enough balls to make him top 5 worthy. But besides him, because I can see the path where that happens. Besides him, are there any other tight ends that you think like, hey, if you have the roster space, this guy could really hit too as well?
Both Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. I've actually been looking for teams on FFPC that have both because when they split, and they will split, right? Likely's a free agent, Andrews is a free agent. Obviously, they're not bringing them both back. But I think Andrews has got a lot left in the tank. I mean, he's just turning 30. He was coming off an injury in a car accident, and clearly he looked like he was moving in molasses to start the beginning of last season. I mean, he looked cooked, but he was hurt, and he rebounded in the second half. So I really like both of those guys based on their price. And Isaiah Likely, I mean, I think he could be, a top 5 receiving weapon as a tight end. So he's someone I'm actively acquiring.
And we'll see what happens if they when they inevitably end up on different teams there. Speaking of splits, we have seen now a split in what the Jets quarterback situation was in 2024 and what it's going to be in 2025. Aaron Rodgers is gone, George. Justin Fields is there. My question here regarding that is, and I can't remember if it was this show or not, but I've talked about how this could actually be an improvement, as weird as it sounds, for Garrett Wilson to get Justin Fields as his quarterback over Aaron Rodgers. Is it going to be better? I know it's going to be different. Is it actually better for Fields throwing the ball to Wilson in New York rather than Rodgers? How do you view that situation?
I think so. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is so petty. It wouldn't surprise me if he intentionally, threw the ball to Lazard and Conklin.
Devontae Adams too. Yeah.
So absolutely. And DJ Moore had a great season with Fields. So I think there's going to be an opportunity to buy Garrett Wilson sometime in early September. This reminds me a lot of CeeDee Lamb in 2022. CD had a couple of nice years, rookie and sophomore, but he really hadn't hit his ceiling. Much like JSN and Drake London, right? And I think Garrett Wilson truthers are starting to get impatient. And I think the time to buy will be after a down game in September. But I remember week 1, 2022, CeeDee Lamb on Sunday Night Football against Tampa Bay, right? The first game of his junior campaign. He went 2 for 29 yards, dropped 2 touchdowns on 11 targets. And one of my co-managers, who's a little more emotional than me, said, CeeDee's a bust. We got to sell him everywhere. And that's when I knew this is the time to buy. So I think managers will have an opportunity if Garrett Wilson has a slow September where the truthers will sell in masses. And that's when you want to go all in on Garrett Wilson, because if you've watched him play, if you've seen the catches he makes, the speed he has, the route running, he is an elite wide receiver, and he will have some 100 catch, 1,500 yard, 10 touchdown seasons. It's not if, it's when.
So in your opinion, George, wait till after the actual NFL season starts and then start looking at Wilson. Sharky. This is why we have people like you on. This is good stuff. In one of my private dynasty leagues, excuse me, I drafted Cedric Tillman as a what was it? This would have been like a 3rd or 4th round pick, I want to say, his rookie year. And I have a taxi squad there, so I could just stow him on the taxi squad, which I did, and then I did it again last year. And I had the opportunity to bring him up on my active roster. I did not, so I could bring him up on my active roster in 2025, which I have to. I have to either bring him up or I have to cut him. And I was like, hey, this is great. I love what he is falling into in Cleveland. This is going to be fantastic. And now with the unsettled quarterback situation, with the rise of Jerry Jeudy and the extension he signed after Cleveland soaked draft capital to get Jeudy in from Denver, I have a lot of questions about Tillman. I saw him do it, George, but now I don't know what his role is going to be with Jeudy, with Njoku. And quite frankly, I don't know what he's going to be throwing or what he's going to be getting from the quarterback position, who's going to be throwing to him. How do you handle Tillman in dynasty leagues right now? Is he a buy? Is he a hold? Is he a sell? I'm asking for myself. Like, I don't even know what to do with this guy right now.
Yeah, to me, he's a buy and a hold. I love Tillman, but I love Tillman because of his price, right? I've been acquiring him for 5th round picks, right? Small miss, big hit. My favorite fantasy analyst, Sean Siegel, right? Small miss, big hit. That is Tillman right there. From weeks 7 to 9 with Jameis, and granted, this is a little Jameis inflation, he went 21 for 255 and 3 TDs. He was a wide receiver 1. He was the wide receiver 1 in all of fantasy those 3 weeks. And he outproduced Jerry Jeudy, who went 13, 170, and 0. So he significantly outplayed Jerry Jeudy in 3 of the 4 games they played together head-to-head before he had his injury. So to me, do I know who's going to be better? Is it going to be Jeudy? Is it going to be Tillman? No. But if I'm paying a early 2nd or a late 1st for Jeudy and I can get Tillman for a 5th, it's a no-brainer. You got to go with Tillman. And I think, he's long-term, I really like him because he's a physical X receiver who wins on the outside and is a good contested catch receiver. And so he's going to be a free agent. I mean, we saw what Tutu Atwell got. $10 million. We saw what De'Ami Brown got, $10 million. I mean, Darius Slayton, $33 million guaranteed, right? So Tillman's going to get a bag. It's not if, it's when. And so I would much rather roster someone like Tillman over guys who haven't shown anything, like roster cloggers, like Roschon Johnson, right? And that's what you can get him for.
I think I have to ask you here, George, as we're talking all this ADP action, all this, not necessarily ADP, but like how you react in dynasty leagues right now. We talked about Aaron Rodgers earlier in the first half of the hour. What do you make of Minnesota? Because it seems like they've gone out on they've gone out of their way to say we're not interested in Aaron Rodgers right now. JJ McCarthy, we believe in right now. As it stands at this moment, JJ McCarthy is going to be our number 1 guy, but they have not put that into cement. And McCarthy even said as much on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Like, no, they haven't told me I'm QB1 this year. As far as Dynasty Superflex leagues go right now, George, is it better to acquire JJ McCarthy shares, or is it better to rid yourself of McCarthy? How do you feel about that situation? Again, in Dynasty Superflex leagues.
Dynasty Superflex. JJ McCarthy is the best quasi-buy low quarterback in Dynasty. He is an absolute smash. We got a brief snippet of playing time in the preseason. I suggest you go watch that on NFL Clips.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, he's got the floor of Bo Nix and the ceiling of a Drake May with weapons. Right. I don't think he's going to have that much rushing ability. I don't think he has as much natural a talent as Drake May, but it's all about the coaching and the weapons. To me, Drake May in Minnesota is a top 5 dynasty quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have Justin Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and Sam Darnold, who's been terrible everywhere he played, just put up a QB1 season and is going to turn back into a pumpkin this year in Seattle. I'm really concerned about Seattle, but we can talk about JSN and the Seattle offense another time. But buy JJ McCarthy.
You said another time. I don't want to do that. Let's talk about JSN specifically right now. Darnold is going to be throwing to him. He's got Cooper Kupp there. There are plenty of rumors out there that Seattle will be using day 1 or day 2 draft capital to add another receiver there. It seems like Tyler Lockett is either done in the NFL or at least done in Seattle. Specifically with Smith and Jigba, the Darnold quarterback situation there. And I'll bring this up too. Ryan Grubb is no longer the OC there, and he was let go because Mike McDonald, reportedly at least, felt like there was too much passing going on there. Well, too much passing really benefited Smith and Jigba, right? And now we won't have that. And now you're going to have Darnold in for Geno Smith. I guess I have to ask you, with Smith and Jigba, if you have him on a dynasty team right now, is this a guy that you need to be look at? Hey, I want to sell high on him because his 2025 is going to pale in comparison to his 2024.
Yeah, I think short term he's a sell. I'm really concerned about the Seattle offense. I don't understand the Kupp signing. I mean, who knows Cooper Kupp better than anyone? The Rams.
The Rams.
And they just kicked him to the curb. And then what did they do? They signed a 32-year-old wide receiver to replace him and gave him a boatload of money. And this is a guy who won the Triple Crown a couple years ago. So What does that tell you about Kupp? And to me, Kupp skill set mirrors JSN's too much. So you're not going to have anybody like DK opening up the field underneath for JSN. So I think Seattle, unless their run offense really takes it to another level and they focus the offense around Charbonnet and Walker, I think they could be a disaster. And we saw what happened to Darnold, right? Once he gets pressure, right? He melted down the last 2 weeks of the season. So I think Darnold's success was 100% due to KOC and the Minnesota offense. And just to circle back to JJ McCarthy, the only thing I see slowing down JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota offense is Brian Flores and the Minnesota defense. If that defense is elite, that's the only thing that I see capping that offense. But that being said, I think Chicago's offense is going to improve. I think the Packers will improve, right? You don't win a Super Bowl by making Josh Jacobs the centerpiece of your offense. Jordan Love is your best player. So I'm excited about the NFC North. I think all the offenses will be better with the exception of maybe Detroit, but they were already an elite offense.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on the NFC North. I want as many skill position players from those teams as possible.
Much as I'd love to bring back the Midwest onto the show and talk NFC North, I feel like that would be a rabbit hole that, George, you and I would not be able to crawl out of in the next couple hours. So let me bring this back to Smith and Jigba. I'm going to tell, here's what I want you to do. I want you to give me higher or lower. I'm going to set an arbitrary number. I'm going to tell you what he did last year, and you tell me higher or lower in 2025. Last year, Jackson Smith-Njigba for the Seahawks, 100 catches. Higher or lower this year, 85.
Higher or lower than 85?
Correct, yes.
Higher.
Okay. He had 1,130 receiving yards last year in 2024. Higher or lower in 2025, 1,000 yards?
Higher.
Okay. 6 touchdowns last year. Higher or lower in 2025? I'm going to set it at the same, 6 touchdowns.
Lower.
Okay. And touchdowns are not sticky like that, what happened. But I think the fact that you're still saying higher than 85 catches, higher than 1,000 yards, you're probably right. It's still like a soft sell, but you still could get good value from Smith-Njigba in 2025 as far as if you keep him on your dynasty team.
Yeah, I just don't see the explosiveness being there. I see him as like a 7 for 80 guy. I don't see the ceiling. And in FFPC championship rounds, what do we want? We need ceiling.
The spike
right?
weeks, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So I'm fading him short term. Long term, I think he's a great player. But if you need to sell now, I think it's a good time.
Yeah, and I get that. I totally get that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you have JSN, this would probably, and you don't like him going forward, or you think like he's going to have a down year short term, this is probably the time to sell on him. Bucky Irving is a guy that I don't want to say came out of nowhere. There are plenty of pundits out there that said he was going to have a big 2024, and he did. Myself and Ferrell and I were talking about this, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show. I was talking up Bucky Irving, and yet I didn't have him on a lot of my teams. I had him on some teams last year, but obviously not enough, and I've been kicking myself. But when you look at this year's running back class and how deep it is and how good it is, some people are saying it's better than 2017 when we had Fournette and McCaffrey and Aaron Jones and Mixon and Kamara and all those guys. There are a certain amount of landmines that a lot of running backs have to avoid in the NFL draft coming up in less than a month. After the NFL draft, George, you think Bucky Irving is still going to be the clear-cut starter in Tampa? And by clear-cut, I mean like this is not a 1A, 1B situation. Irving is going to be the guy. Do you still think that is going to be the case? Or if you don't think that's going to be the case, maybe now's the time to sell on Irving. How do you view this situation in Tampa?
Absolutely. I think he'll be the clear-cut starter after the draft. I mean, I don't think they're going to draft anybody high enough where, come early May, you're like, wow, Bucky's starting job might be in question. I mean, they've already got the best backup running back arguably in the NFL, and Sean Tucker, who had an absolute flop of a rookie year because he was injured, right? And I mean, Siegel said it last season. He's like, boy, Sean Tucker looked better than Bucky in the one game where he ran for 3 touchdowns. I mean, he looked fantastic. So I don't think the Bucs will draft a running back, but I didn't think the Jets were going to draft Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis. So, these GMs, I mean, they're in their own universe. But I would be shocked if the Bucs took somebody before day 3.
And I think like if I am a Bucky Irving owner, man, if I get through Thursday and Friday and there's no running backs, I'm feeling great about Irving. And quite frankly, Irving's value probably goes up then quite a bit in dynasty leagues too. If the Buccaneers do not draft a running back prior to, and if they draft one on day 3, it is what it is. He's not going to threaten. He's probably not even going to be a 1B at that point. Speaking of running backs, and we should ask you about this because our good buddy Tom in the YouTube chat wants to know, and we also had an email about this too, George, from Ken in Norton, Massachusetts. Hi, HSFFhour. Do you see a repeat of Devon Achane's 2024 this year? And Tom wants to know what you think about him in 2025. How do you feel about Devon Achane?
I like Achane. He's one of my highest owned running backs. I think I have around 18% of him. I was a little disappointed with his year last year. I mean, he was so explosive as a rookie. He put on some weight. And then he just wasn't the same back when Tua was out, which was understandable. But his drop-off with and without Tua, the splits were pretty insane. So Mostert's out of the picture. They got Jalen Wright, who, may be just another guy. I'm hoping Achane drops a little bit of weight. It was encouraging to see his pass catching. And I'm definitely bullish on him long-term in Dynasty. In best ball, I'm probably fading his ADP on Underdog, which is right around the 1-2 turn. I think I'd probably rather have Gianti or take a chance with CMC, who I think has a higher ceiling than Achane.
How do you feel just in regards to McCaffrey in best ball leagues this year? How many running backs would you take in front of him? Let's do a quick would you rather this year. Again, this is best ball, not dynasty here, George. Would you rather have Bijan Robinson or Christian McCaffrey?
Bijan.
Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey?
Saquon.
Jahmyr Gibbs or Christian McCaffrey?
Gibbs.
Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Henry for floor, CMC for ceiling.
Okay, you're cheating a little bit on that, but I will allow it. Ashton Genty or Christian McCaffrey? You may have just answered this.
Boy, that's tough. I took CMC over Genty in my last Underdog draft.
I would take Genty, but that's just me. And quite frankly, if I'm a volume drafter, I'm probably splitting it down the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I only have one, it's probably Genty. Devon Achane or Christian McCaffrey?
CMC.
McCaffrey or Jonathan Taylor?
CMC.
I agree. McCaffrey or Josh Jacobs?
That's not even a question.
Oh, it's McCaffrey for you, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree as well. So there you go.
I think the cutoff is Derrick Henry, Gianti.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite mottos in fantasy football is draft like you're right? So CMC.
That is, I've never heard that before, but that is fantastic, George. I love that. Draft like you're right.
Yes. So you can't draft if you're going to draft CMC, right? It's going to be a slam dunk. You can't, weigh it in and out. You got to go all in.
Mm-hmm. I think I have to ask you, and we haven't. I mean, normally I did the HSFF show on the Better Sports Network last night, and we talked so much rookies. We've talked very little rookies tonight. I have to ask here, George, do you have a favorite rookie in this year's class? We just talked about Genty. Obviously, everybody loves him. But is there another guy that maybe not a lot of people are talking about, maybe a guy that is intriguing you? Is there a player that maybe in your early your early dynasty drafts that you have maybe made some deals in order to get a pick in the spot where you think this guy is going to go? I guess maybe that's reading too much into it, but do you have a favorite rookie out there that maybe not a lot of people are talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it took me a little bit to warm to him, but I was trying to think about who could be the most mispriced, right? Where is there fear in the market? Mm-hmm. And to me, there's one name that really stands out, and that's Travis Hunter.
I was just gonna say, don't say it. Let me guess, but that would have been my first choice because the ceiling is so high with this guy, but the floor is pretty low. Go on.
So exactly, the floor is low. So you've got to exploit other owners' fear, right? Again, draft like you're right. Mm-hmm. And it all makes sense. I mean, it's talking points. Oh, he's going to play defense, blah, blah, blah. He's going to play both ways. He's only going to play offense in a certain amount of packages. But imagine if he gets drafted in New England. I mean, who do they have? Diggs coming off an ACL surgery. Drake May, the first time he throws him passes in OTAs, is going to go up to the coach and say, hey, I don't care, Vrobel, I don't care what your plan is on defense for this guy. You got to get him on the field all the time. So I think he could be an absolute gem and is probably criminally underpriced. And we've already started to see his value go up on Underdog, and he's risen pretty precipitously.
In the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, he is the 5th receiver going off the board right now. He is going as wide receiver 50 at the 10-11 turn right now. So McMillan, Egbuka, Burden, and Golden all going ahead of him. Trey Harris still going a healthy 5 rounds behind him. But as far as other rookies going in front of him, you got the 2 tight ends in Warren and Loveland going in front of him. Scadaboo, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, and then obviously Genty, Hampton, and Henderson all going in front of him right now. There is value to be mined there for sure if you're looking at Hunter, not only in Dynasty Leagues, but best ball leagues going on right now. We're running short on time. One final question for you here, George. Is there one player in the NFL that maybe you have him on your Dynasty Leagues that you're like, you know what, I got to get this guy off my roster and onto somebody else's roster ASAP? And is there another player you're trying to acquire? We've talked about a few of those players tonight that you're trying to acquire and get on your teams at the right price. But your thoughts on this question? If there's one player you're trying to get rid of, one player you're trying to acquire, who would those players be?
Well, I can't get rid of him because he's already off all of my teams. But if he's on your team, you should get rid of him. And now is the perfect time to sell. And that's Najee Harris. He is going to be Gus Edwards reincarnated. I guarantee that the Chargers draft an explosive or a more explosive running back. And at the end of the day, right, we've seen this. Running backs are all about volume. I mean, Dowdle is the perfect example, right? If they get an opportunity, they produce, right? If they get touches, they produce. All of these guys are amazing athletes, right? But they're commodities. That's what they are. And at the end of the day, Najee is a commodity who is valuable in fantasy as long as he gets volume. But the moment he stops getting that volume and he continues his inefficiency, his value goes to nothing. So sell him for whatever you can, because you can get quite a haul right now. People are envisioning, Melvin Gordon in his prime type numbers for the Chargers, but he is absolutely somebody that I am fading.
To your point, Edwards no longer on the Chargers. Dobbins still a free agent. Harris is the only guy there, but I am totally in agreement with you. He is going to be the only guy in Los Angeles for about another month. And then they will have maybe one or maybe 2 other rookies that will have fresh legs that are going to come in to compete for touches. So I'm with you, sell Harris. In fact, I think if I remember I'd have to go back and check my Dynasty Leagues. I think he is off all my Dynasty Leagues right now as well. That's not a player that I want to be in business with. But who is a player you want to be in business with, a player you're looking to acquire, George?
At quarterback, it's Drake May and CJ Stroud. In best ball, that's the sweet spot for me. I love to hammer wide receiver and wait on my quarterbacks. And to me, both those guys are underpriced and have the upside that you want in both best ball and in Dynasty.
I think May is, it goes without saying, obviously, with the addition of Diggs, new blood in the coaching staff, and they're making a lot of changes. The defense should help them out this year. As far as Stroud goes, why is this the year to? Because I know there's a lot of people on him last year, and it obviously didn't hit. People are like, oh my God, they got Diggs, they got Tank Dell, they got Nico Collins. It's going to be the year of Stroud. It didn't work that way. Is that kind of why you're buying into Stroud now? This I don't want to say post-hype sleeper, but a post-hype guy coming into 2025 where maybe he doesn't have the ringing endorsements of all these other, talented guys coming in. I know they got Christian Kirk or whatever. But maybe that's the reason that you want to be buying in on Stroud?
Well, he's QB 18. I mean, again, it's the price.
It's his market. It's the market. Yeah. Which makes sense.
And we saw what he did as a rookie. The talent is undeniable. And I'm guessing that they're not done at wide receiver. I'm guessing they bring in either somebody, likely through the draft. So,
and all of a sudden, that wide receiver room that looked desolate before the Kirk trade could look like Collins, Kirk, and Matthew Golden, or Collins, Kirk, Emeka Egbuka. All of a sudden, that looks really good for CJ Stroud as well. Or, the other thing to keep in mind too is, I know Dalton Schultz is probably has his best football behind him. What if they get Loveland, or what if they get Fannin, or what if they get, Elijah Arroyo, or one of these other tight ends where, yeah, it's not a receiver, but now all of a sudden you're still featuring 4 significant guys in that passing game that could pay off, especially in a weak division like Houston plays in. Wheels could be up for CJ Stroud in Dynasty Superflex leagues, no question. And this is why we bring him. Go ahead.
And let's not forget, I mean, who was the number one wide receiver the first 6-7 weeks of the season before they got hurt?
Nico Collins, no question. Yeah,
absolute stud. I mean, and it wasn't close. He was lapping the competition before he got hurt. So, I mean, he's an absolute beast.
And I think if you have him on your dynasty leagues, or if you are looking to start your team, receiver, a Brian Thomas, Nico Collins start, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins start. Nico Collins, Trey McBride is also intriguing in the FFPC as well. I only wish we had an unlimited amount of time to talk with you about these subjects tonight, George, but we just don't, which is okay, because we got a lot. I've ingested a lot of content that you've produced tonight into my head. It's made me a better player. It's made me a better dynasty guy. Listen, you have had a lot of success in 2024, winning 3 FFPC Dynasty Leagues. I know more success is in your future. Thank you so much for not only hopping aboard tonight, but sitting in the co-host chair, which is no small task. You did a great job tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of the lead up to the NFL draft. Enjoy your rookie drafts. Enjoy drafting season, my friend. We will talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That is Carlos Danger, a.k.a. George Ristad, joining me on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. I wish I could get to your emails. I'll bring up those emails next week when Ferrell's back as well. Such a good time tonight. I want to thank George Ristad. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you for listening, streaming, viewing, downloading this podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. We will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern time. 2-time FFPC League champion Kyle Pollock will be our guest. Looking forward to that. That's going to be a good one here, as it will be our first show of April. And leading up to the NFL draft, this is our unofficial march to the NFL draft podcast that we'll have on Wednesday, the night before the 2025 NFL draft in beautiful Green Bay, Wisconsin. In case you missed it, watch last night's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network with Draft Sharks Shane Hallam. We went deep into the rookie class this year. We talked about players that I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have not heard a lot of people talk about some of the players that Shane and I discussed last night, players that you need to know for your rookie drafts for sure. A lot of fun. 2-hour show, Better Sports Network, betternetwork.com, BSN socials, as well as the FFPC socials. Check that out. We will be back live on that show, 7 o'clock on Thursday, with Fantasy Points and Rotoballer. Matt Donnelly, the Dynasty Viper himself, will join me for the full 2 hours on that program. Again, that starts at 7 o'clock Eastern time this coming Thursday. Okay. The RotoViz High Stakes lowdown will return for April. It is going to be Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time for we're just going monthly in the off season on that. So we will have on the only you've seen him on this podcast before. Jason Utronki will join me at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. He is an 18-time FFPC League champion. He will dish his knowledge on it, and big emphasis on Dynasty here too as well. So we'll get into that with him at 10 p.m. on Tuesday, April 1st. Play the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball and Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball tournaments right now at myffpc.com. $40,000 and $10,000 grand prize, respectively, going on. $125 and $35 entry fees there. Those tournaments will run all the way through April 24th before the start of the NFL draft. Check them out. Dynasty Orphans available at myffpc.com. $77 to $5,000 on the normal entry fees. Some of those you can pick up for $1 right now. Again, 15 plus years, 1,800 plus dynasty leagues. Not a single one is folded. Join now, myffpc.com. And while you're there, join the FFPC Big Gorilla Tournament. We got live drafts going on throughout the weekend. We got slow drafts filling all the time. $1 million grand prize drafts going on with the early Rampage tournament. You can get into that. It's basically 2 tournaments for the price of 1 entry fee over at myffpc.com. 7 Bananas promo is live as well. A lot of people have been cashing in. Free main event entries, free best ball tournament entries there. For more information, go to myffpc.com and register there. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be Tuesday night, 10 p.m. on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown with one Jason Utronki. I have been Eric Balkman for Carlos Danger, a.k.a. It's a.k.a. George Ristad tonight. So good to have you. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I want to just do a special shout out. I know Ferrell wasn't on the show tonight. KFFSC.com is where to go right now. We have Dom Gazzetti, my good buddy from the left coast, chiming in. Balky, are you in any KFFSC live events yet? No, I'm not in live events yet. However, I will be heavily involved in KFFSC live events in Louisville Friday, Saturday, and Sunday once again, as I have been for the last decade plus. I'm already in some KFFSC slow drafts that should be filling up shortly. So if you are looking for some KFFSC drafts where you could draft against me, Dom, and some of these other guys that are hanging out in the chat right now, and a lot of the FFPC players, KFFSC.com is where to go for that. Very eager to get those drafts going. That's where to go for that. And as far as live events, as I am entered in them, I will let you know right here on this show of when you can draft against me in Louisville. Looking forward to that every year. It is maybe my favorite, not even maybe. It's my favorite weekend of the year. Hopefully you can join us in Louisville this year again. Until then, KFFSC.com, myffpc.com for the Big Gorilla, the Never Too Early tournaments, and of course, Dynasty Orphans. Thanks so much. Back to your brackets. I appreciate you watching tonight, everybody, and we will talk with you again on Tuesday, as well as Thursday and Friday next week.